Every year, thousands of athletes leave the game behind, but almost 60% struggle with depression, identity loss, or career uncertainty. This documentary explores what happens after the final whistle blows.
Sports isn't going to last forever. Your body isn't going to last forever, so start making those preparations.
I guess like the one memory I can have that really like stuck out with me being young, my dad putting me on a Reggie Bush. That was kind of, I guess that's whenever I fell in love with football, watching Reggie Bush.
In third grade, I remember I begged my dad to let me, play tackle football because he wanted me to wait till I was in like middle school. But yeah, I begged him, and then I ended up being nice, and so I played tackle football all the way until college. So I ended up going to Texas State. The recruitment was interesting because at that point in time, obviously before NIL, we didn't really know a lot about the recruitment process. So like, I wasn't really like putting myself out there. And then looking back, I'm like, wow, like, the talent that I'm seeing going to these bigger schools and everything, like, if I would have just marketed myself better or even knew how to market myself at that point in time, like, I probably would have had a lot more options. But for the recruitment process, like, I had about like 8-9 offers from like, mid-level D1 schools, and I ended up picking Texas State because I feel like I waited so long because I thought I was going to get bigger offers, and then I never did. So when I tried to go back and look at the offers I had, so many of them had already signed other players in my place. So my options were like even more limited than before. Texas State was the first school to offer me, and I already knew some people going there, so I felt like, I felt the most comfortable going to Texas State.
So I was always playing football just for the joy of it, up until maybe like my sophomore, junior year of high school. And then I transferred from a public school to a private school because I had two guys in front of me that was twin brothers, and I wasn't getting no playing time in front of them. They're actually in the NFL right now. But yeah, I transferred. That's whenever I really started to have my chance at really showing that I can play football. That's whenever I started to recognize I can play football.
We kind of didn't really get the respect that we deserved. So it was like, yeah, like it was cool because at that point in time when I first got in, that was the first year we had become bowl eligible. So that was like the first time like I feel like fans were really like supporting us and seeing us in a light that was like, oh, like, we actually have a decent like college football team. And I thought that was fun and exciting. But then like, the next year we went 3-9, and then you could just see like the night and day shift. Like, you'd be in class and they'd be talking about like, man, is anyone going to the Texas State game? And everyone would be like, hell no. And they'd be like, we don't have any football players in here, do we? And like, you almost don't even want to like raise your hand because it's just like, wow, like they don't even care that, who knows that they don't like us. But yeah, it was an interesting process, and I guess that's what it is for all sports now that I see it. If you're doing good, then they love you, and if you're doing bad, then they're openly talking bad about you. So yeah, it's just what it was.
Even after playing in front of thousands of people, after you get through like the kickoff, after like 30 seconds, you really don't hear nobody after that. You kind of like locked in consciously. I mean, maybe unconsciously you may hear people, the crowd may have an effect on like the attitude or tone of the team. But for the most part, it's not that big. I will say that in bigger games though, for like you said, for when you are playing in front of like a few thousands of people at Texas State, it wasn't always like you're playing in front of tens and thousands of people. But for the big games, or when we play like UTSA, like the rival game at their dome or out here and the stadium's packed, you run from under the tunnel because you kind of like, you warming up, you kind of see people coming in, and then you got to go into the locker room for like 20-30 minutes. Boom, boom, boom. Within that 20-30 minutes, you come back outside. They got the lights off. It went from being kind of sunny to now it's kind of dark. They got people everywhere. You just see like the flashlights. Like it's really like a kind of striking type of vibe running out there and really knowing like, oh my, like, and really seeing people, like, that's kind of like, you get chills from it sometimes. Yeah, after a while of playing in the game, that kind of wears off. You look into the crowd, or you like on the field, and you like trying to get the crowd pumped and stuff. It's cool to have people there to interact with.
Yeah, I remember my coach asking me, you know, if I didn't make it to the league, like, what would I want to do? And, you know, I told him I wanted to screenwrite. And I don't know if, like, he just didn't believe me or what, but he kind of just laughed at me, like, in my face. And, you know, there's a mentality in athletics, largely for black athletes, that, like, you wouldn't be anything if we didn't offer you this scholarship and you were playing for us. So, like, you're indebted to us. And, you know, the way he did that, like, I still had a year of eligibility left after that, but, like, 2 months later, I just walked out because I just couldn't live with, you know, feeling like I only had one option.
So when that comes to an end and that identity is heavily tied to their role as an athlete, then there can be a lot of lack of confidence, a lack of direction outside of sports. There can be a lot of anxiety, depression, super common stuff. It can lead to addiction.
So me, luckily I've kind of been doing like my own, I've been running my own business. I had this pickle business since I was like 13, 14. That wasn't necessarily a business yet, but I was learning how to sell this product. So as I transferred into Texas State, and I started to learn more about business and stuff, I started to learn how to get excited about business. I started to teach myself to get the same feeling that I would get from getting interception as to gaining a new store to put my products in. So as my last season kind of came about, I kind of knew I wasn't going to the NFL. That was kind of never really my dream. My dream was always to go play like at a Division I level. So after I kind of understood that I wasn't going to the league and I had no reason to like strain and keep, you know, obviously kind of want to live that dream out a little bit, just to like touch it, just to see what it's like. But within my last year, between me being here and my last year, I kind of started to gain more interest in me selling pickles, or me starting my business. So yeah, so it was a little bit easier for me transitioning. It just felt, I felt that as my years as a football player was declining, my years of becoming an entrepreneur, I was really getting into my role as being a CEO. So that's kind of how the transition went.
You know, I think like ultimately you still are you, but there's a sort of like ego that you kind of have to kill once you leave, you know. As this athlete, you feel kind of like invincible, you know, in a certain light. And then having to work a normal job, or, you know, just do things that normal people do that you felt like you weren't, that can be very humbling, you know. And some people don't want to do it, and it puts them at a further financial deficit until you can finally swallow your pride and just say, hey, what am I trying to like work for? And let me just take the steps that it takes to get there, you know. And a lot of times that takes just losing that, you know, athlete identity and becoming whatever it is that you're pursuing. So for me, you know, I started getting into film, and I'd say like in the last, you know, 5 years I've been in LA, most people didn't even know I ever played sports, you know, which is good because it's like now they're valuing me just off of, you know, my skills that I have, or evaluating me off of my value, you know, in the film world, instead of like, oh, you're an athlete, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I mean, I don't think you want to be that has-been athlete either. So it's like just better if you transition into a different, not identity, but just take on different characteristics from yourself rather than that athlete characteristic.
So I will say that football kind of teaches you how to like compete within yourself, because your coaches, just even me being a person and how I got to where I am now, from being a walk-on to where I am now, you don't really get there from coaches pushing you or from kind of outside influences. Kind of get there from like self-motivation. So I say a lot of self-motivation kind of got me through trying to find something.
But I think athletes who understand and actually even embrace some sort of faith navigate retirement much better, because their identity is not in that role. They simply live out their purpose, but their role is not their purpose, so they transition easier into what comes next.
If you're gonna go D2 or D3 and it's not JUCO or D1 and you're going for football, that's the only reason you're going to that school, just don't even do that and just pick a school that you actually like and just go to school and figure out what you want to do post school, or walk on to a bigger school. But going to a D3 especially is just not ever going to be beneficial or do anything for you, you know? So instead of doing that, just enjoy your college experience and make sure that you get the most out of the education. So find a school that you just like instead of just going to a super small school to play a sport that you're probably not going to do anything with. And also, even if you are going to a D1, don't go to a D1 just because of the coaches that you like. Like, make sure that you like the campus, that you feel like, you know, the location, the courses they offer, things that you can take with you as you know, grow into an adult. The actual, like, people that are in the team, like, that's kind of like the last thing that you look at, because, you know, it's such a moving process, and even more so now with NIL, that the things that you liked about the actual personnel for the program, I mean, they could be here today and gone tomorrow. So make sure you like everything else about it first before you start thinking about the personnel.
Don't wait until the bowl game or the last game, because whenever a check ain't coming no more, that check ain't coming no more. So if you got bills and stuff that you got to pay for, or you got to, like, you should start thinking about what you're going to do as far as like your housing after the season. But these are the things you should think about when the season ends. This is something you should be thinking about, like, when the season starts. Literally, when the season starts, you should be worried about, okay, well, we in the fourth quarter of this season. We already went through the spring ball. This is after the season. Where am I gonna stay? Am I gonna do pro day? And yeah, start thinking about what you're gonna do after football whenever the season starts.
I think as much as they can, I certainly, anyone who works with me as an individual or as a team, like, they got to begin that transition actually while they're still playing. I mean, it's what I love about what I do is I do a mental assessment on an athlete first, so that they understand their innate mental wiring and what their strengths and challenges are, given their sport of choice. But I'm screening for therapeutic issues, which can impact innate wiring. I provide an athletic report, a stress management report, that's a big one, but also a career report. So you got to be concurrently developing the career you're going to do after you retire. And so I really stress to my athletes to take advantage of any player development programs. And a lot of professional teams and leagues are doing better with that. But it needs to happen while you're also in high school, in college, to explore and figure out what are those other things I'm good at and would want to do after I retire from my athletic report. That way, when that comes to an end, you do the normal grief, but you're ready to go with that next career, which you're going to actually spend more time doing than your athletic career.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, I'm kind of doing a mix between film and music right now. I also do marketing as well, but for film, you know, I do screenwrite. That's what I was talking about earlier. And for music, you know, I own a recording studio. I work with artists I also, do workshops with producers and engineers, and yeah, just kind of working that space and navigating it. And I'm still growing as a person and still finding new things, even within my craft that maybe I feel like I could segue to or be better at. And yeah, I'm taking it day by day. I'm trying to be better than I was last year, and figure out the ultimate thing that I'm great at. So. Yeah.
I do think there probably are some avenues for you to go play football if you really look for it. But I just found the competitive nature within my business. Now I keep track of how many sales I make a week and months, and that's kind of where I get my competitive nature from, competitive edge at.
Some people where the ending is much more abrupt because of injury. And others get to live out, right, some multiple years in their career. So you need to have someone that can help you process that, can help you, how should I say, shift your identity, which if it's tied to that role is a lie identity. And so you got to understand your authentic identity and your mission, and then how you're going to live that out in your next role.
Sports don't last forever. Identity does.